What is up, fellow fiction fanatics? Today's video is just gonna be a short one, or at least I'll try to keep it that way. And as you can see from my little getup here, it's the start of spooky season! I, for one, am excited to read more spooky stories that are on my reading list if I ever get to them at some point. For today, though, I'm just sharing a little wrap-up. A summary, if you will, of the things that I've read, watched, and or listened to in September and what I generally thought of them. My longer book reviews would be on my WordPress blog, which I'll link in the description down below if you're curious about them, if you just want to check it out. I only read 2.25 books this month, meaning I finished 2 books and put one in my did not finish list. These books are called ARCs or Advanced Reader Copies, mostly provided by NetGalley in exchange for honest reviews. The first book that I read last September was Each of Us a Desert by Mark Osiro. This book is a standalone YA fantasy, which is really rare nowadays, and it was released on September 15 this year. I absolutely adored this book. I am pretty much obsessed with it, and I really won't shut up about it. Here's my overall thoughts on this book. Each of Us a Desert by Mark Osiro is an incredible YA fantasy that weaves stories and the characters' journey with the themes of history, family, connections, spirituality, and finding a purpose. The emotional depth of this book is just as vast as the desert it's set in, and the beautiful prose supplements the characters, themes, stories, and journeys written here. I'm really impressed with what Oshiro has done with their stylistic and narrative choices and the way they let Sochil's journey unfold. I haven't read anything quite like Each of Us a Desert, especially in YA fiction, and it's just been an incredible privilege to have gotten an advanced reader copy for this book. And this book balanced the prose with the plot and compelling, complex characters that have sympathetic goals. The stylistic choice to use second-person perspective was written well and was integrated well into the story's theme. I literally had chills reading the last line of the book because of that. The stylistic choice isn't just aesthetic or a show-offy gimmick. It has purpose and is vital not just to the story but to the characters as well. Like, look, a lot of books try out poetic prose or poetic techniques in prose, but it's not easy to execute well. A lot of them end up sounding mismatched, awkward, or forced because there are no themes to the poetic prose, the hyperbole goes into the uncanny valley territory, or tries too hard to establish a theme that ends up spreading itself too thin. But this book doesn't do any of that. The prose just is. And prose and poetry are vital to the story too, so every technique has a purpose. It also has LGBTQ and Latino or Latinx or Latin representation written by a Latinx author, and it's freaking beautiful. I love it, I haven't stopped talking about it, and it's high up in my favorites list. It's easily one of my top reads this year. The next book I read was Secret Legacy by Carissa Andrews. This was the book that I didn't finish. Long story short, the book just wasn't for me, and all my opinions about it are subjective. Of course, because people have different tastes. I put this in my DNF or did not finish list after about 20% through. I should mention though that 50% of this book's royalties would go to the American Cancer Society, so there's good intent with this book. And I'll link the charity down below as well if any of you are interested in donating. Secret Legacy is about Autumn Blackwood, a seemingly normal girl who gets an invitation to go to a magical school, and she may turn out to be a witch after all. Here's my overall thoughts for Secret Legacy. Secret Legacy was a struggle for me to read, with its underdeveloped characters, romantic and familial relationships, and world building. Its prose was indeed descriptive, but only in terms of physical surroundings and not where it should count towards plot or emotional impact. It also suffers from mood shifts so fast it left me with emotional whiplash. The main character suffers from "I'm not like other girls" syndrome like other female leads in early 2000s, but has no justifications as to why she's not like other girls. The dialogue is also filled with quips trying to be witty but end up sounding unnatural, even for the modern fantasy that this book is set in. There's just too many issues with this book that I do not agree with. In the copy that I received, the main character literally says,
I don't need to be dubbed in makeup, eyebrows drawn on like I'm paying homage to Groucho Marx. I'd rather stand out by being the opposite of all of that insanity.
like Miss Ebony Darkness Dementia Not Like Other Girls Raven Way, 2009 called. It wants its internalized misogyny and not like other girls heroines back. Autumn is supposed to be 20, by the way. You'd think she would have unlearned such basic high school, but nope. Autumn also falls for basic YA bad boy, maybe a villainous love interest, within like a chapter or two of meeting him. Like, are we supposed to root for these characters romantically through their privilege of validation through heteronormativity? Witty quips and expository backstory were like the only two things those two characters shared in common. After reading incredible, well developed romantic relationships, especially queer relationships, which have a harder time of validating their existence in the real world, by the way, a default expectation of,
Ooh, you should ship because he boy, she girl, buddy banter, he bad, she good.
it's just boring to me. Don't even get me started on the logistics or lack thereof of the main character in this book. Autumn, a supposedly non magical person, gets a letter invite to a school for people with magic, and not even once does she or her mom think, are they out there pranking us or what? The main character just straight up debates whether she should go to school or not. The leap from logic is just. Anyway, in short, this book wasn't for me and it took over 2 weeks to read, so I just had to stop. The last book I've read is The Scapegracers by Hannah Abigail Clark. I really wanted to like this book. It's got the ingredients for an awesome concept. A lesbian witch finding her coven, a teenage witches fighting against misogynistic boys, and a girl group with strong supportive friendships galore. It sounds amazing, right? Well, The Scapegracers held so much promise in its premise that it isn't fully fulfilled. It promised a magical world where powerful witches, queer and straight alike, wreak vengeance upon misogynistic, abusive, power-tripping boys on behalf of their non-magical sisters. But instead, we got teen girls way in over their heads, too busy trying to look cool or badass to actually pursue vengeance and protect their coven. If the goal was to portray how inexperienced these witches are, then this book definitely succeeded at it. I just found myself getting frustrated while trying to read this book, and I was so tempted to DNF this multiple times because whenever I thought a possible plot point would get addressed, it just kept going back to,
Hey, let's do another party.
I mean, sure, the book is character driven, so I didn't expect much of a plot, but this book just kept avoiding the plot or what little of it there is. There wasn't much character development or a hint of it either, so I can't excuse the story stretching this long. While I do like the LGBTQ plus representation, I felt that it was lacking. The promised sapphic romance that was used to hype up the book was barely developed, mostly based on physical hotness or attractiveness, and fell into a dangerous, overly used trope. Of course, this is just book 1 out of a series, so things might get explained later, and I hope the later books address the possible misrepresentation. Also, I found the book suffered from what I dub as the Twilight Syndrome, where some side characters are actually more interesting and have more compelling backstories than the main characters. I just found myself wanting to read more about this side character or that side character instead of the slugfest that was this book. This month, I watched Julie and the Phantoms, a show on Netflix, and I thought it was cute. I may or may not do a video on it later, we'll see about it, but I did like the show a lot. I also watched Enola Holmes, and it was pretty great. I did think it was packed with too many things going on, but I did enjoy it. I think it was pretty decent. I'm a huge Troye Sivan fan, and I listened to the In a Dream EP on loop pretty much throughout this past month. I just love sad bops, okay? I couldn't resist it. They're too good. Also, In a Dream's like 80s inspired synth pop is just really, really good. Blackpink's long-awaited album has also just come out recently, and that's also on my loop list. Of course, Lovesick Girls is on a loop for me because I just couldn't resist a sad bop. I've also been trying to complete short stories, but that's been a struggle since I just end up getting distracted and playing Among Us every time, so that's it for my September wrap-up. What's the one book you're looking forward to reading this month? Let me know in the comments below. I've been Fiction Fixer, and I'll see you all in the next video.